Hello everyone, it's Miss LaChance here again with another read aloud video. Today we will be reading chapters 11 through 15 of our read aloud book, The Wild Robot Escapes by Peter Brown. In the last chapters that I read, 6 through 10, we met some of the cows in the barn that Roz is living in, and we also saw Roz express some empathy towards a cow named Tess, who voiced to Roz and to the other animals that she was also taken from her home and her family to be on this farm. And Roz was able to relate to that because, as we all know, she was taken from her home on the island and Brightbill, her son, and all of her friends on that island, and taken to a factory to be fixed and then shipped off to this farm. We have also gotten a little bit of an idea of what Roz's daily routine looks like on her farm. It involves a lot of work, a lot of farm work. And today we will be diving into chapter 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. In the end of my last video, I gave you a sneak peek at what chapter 11 looks like, or at least I showed you the chapter title of chapter 11. Let me go ahead and find the page I'm looking for. And I showed you that the chapter title for chapter 11 is called The Stragglers. And I asked you to comment in the comment sections below what you think of when you think of a straggler. We'll be diving into this chapter today, so hopefully either this chapter confirms your personal definition of what a straggler is, or maybe it gives you another idea of what a straggler could be that you weren't thinking of before. When I think of a straggler, I think of something or somebody in a place where they don't necessarily feel like they belong. Maybe they're a little bit of an outsider. But I actually haven't read this chapter yet. So let's see if my definition of a straggler is confirmed in this chapter. All right, let's get started with chapter 11. Wild geese are known for migrating in autumn and the spring, but exactly when a flock migrates is up to its members. Some flocks choose to fly early in the season, others straggle far behind. And it was one of those straggling flocks that caught the attention of our robot. So it seems to me that in this beginning of this chapter, it's referring to the word straggler as somebody who is kind of an outsider, right? So that kind of confirms my definition. It seems like there is a straggler in this flock of geese. Honk, honk, honk! The geese were heard before they were seen. Their honking voices echoed across the farm, and then the flock appeared above the fields, flying in a wobbly V formation. They glided over the pasture and plunked down into the pond. None of them were very concerned as Roz approached. The geese had seen familiar creatures on other farms, and they knew there was nothing to fear. But they were about to learn that our robot was very different from the others. "Hello, geese," said Roz. "Welcome to Hilltop Farm." The geese froze. They stared at Roz with suspicious eyes. And then the biggest goose slowly swam over. "I've come across plenty of monsters like you," he said, "but I've never met one who could talk." "I am not a monster. I am a robot. My name is Roz." The goose scratched his head. "Well, it's nice to meet you, Roz the robot," he said at last. "My name is Wingtip, and this is my flock." Roz gave a friendly wave, and soon the flock was gathering around, curious to meet this odd character. As you can imagine, the geese were shocked to learn that Roz had a goose for a son. They asked her all kinds of questions about Brightbill and about her old life on the island and about her new life on the farm. Then Roz asked them a question of her own. Do you think Brightbill's flock would ever come this way on their migration? Doubtful, said Wingtip. It sounds like his flock takes the eastern flyways. They'd never come this far west. The robot slumped with disappointment. However, we geese are full of surprises, added Wingtip. I'll promise you this, Roz. If we ever meet Brightbill, we'll point him in your direction. The talk was interrupted by giggling and barking. The children were taking their dog for a walk. Roz couldn't be seen chatting with these geese, so she whispered a quick goodbye to her new friends and went back to work. And when she looked down at the pond later that day, she saw that the flock was gone. And here's the picture on that page. Chapter 12 is called The Homesick Robot. We all feel homesick at one time or another. Even the robot felt something like homesickness. Roz belonged with her son and her friends on her island. She was determined to find her way back there. But how? If the robot was seen doing anything unusual, Mr. Sharif might have her destroyed. Roz had to be careful, so she calmly went about her farm work day in and day out. But all the while, the homesick robot was secretly planning her escape. All right, my friends, chapter 13 is called The Electronic Signal. Beep, 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 beep. A message was flashing on Roz's computer. The drone was reporting that gusty winds had sent it spiraling into the neighbor's bean field. So the robot grabbed the big, heavy toolbox and marched out to clean up the mess. Roz found the flying machine upside down with its landing gear poking above the rows of leafy plants. It had some scrapes and scratches, but no major damage. She flipped it over, brushed it off, and tightened a few screws. Then she said, "Return to Hilltop Farm." The engines started buzzing and the machine lifted off the ground and flew home. As Roz marched back, she cut through a strip of forest that separated the two farms. There were trees and ferns and rocks and shrubs and small forest animals. It was a little piece of wilderness, and suddenly the robot was thinking of that wild island she missed so much. Someday she would try to run away and return to her true home. Was this the moment for her escape? Could it be as easy as sneaking off through the trees? No, it couldn't be that easy. Ahead, on the other side of the trees, Mr. Sharif was sitting in his pickup truck watching Roz. Because of the robot's electronic signal, he knew she had stepped off the property, and he had raced out there to see what she was up to. Roz marched over to the truck, and Mr. Sharif leaned out his window. He had a serious expression on his face. "Don't ever leave the property without my permission, understand?" "I understand," said Roz. She understood all right. She understood that she was always being watched. She understood that she was trapped on Hilltop Farm. Here's a picture of Mr. Sharif in his pickup truck. And chapter 14 is called The Sad Truth. We'll read this chapter and then we'll end off this video with chapter 15. That night, while everyone else was sleeping, Roz stayed up with her computer and researched sneaky subjects. She looked for diagrams of her own body and for maps of the area and for any news that might help her escape. But the robot found nothing. The computer only let her access information about farming. She was cut off from the outside world. It was clear that if Roz wanted to escape from her new life, she would need help. But the cows didn't know how to escape, and Mr. Sharif would never let his robot leave. Who would possibly help Roz run away from the farm? All right. Okay. That's a big question, and chapter 15 is called The Children. So let's see if the children are able to help Roz in any way when she's thinking about escaping. As time rolled by, Roz saw less and less of Mr. Sharif, But she saw more and more of the children. They were shy at first. The robot might look up from the pasture and see Jad peeking through the corner of the barn, or see Jaya spying from the branches of a tree. But the children were growing bolder. What do you think that word means, bolder? Go ahead and comment in the section below if you're interested in participating and interacting with the text. And then one day, Roz marched into the workshop and heard giggling. She walked to the closet in the back, opened the door, and there was Jaya, smiling and trying not to laugh. "I'm hiding from my brother," whispered the girl. Oop, I'll try that again in a whisper voice. "I'm hiding from my brother," whispered the girl. "Close the door." The robot closed the door. A minute later, Jad ran in, flushed, out of breath. "Hey, Roz, have you seen Jaya?" The robot just stared. "I know she's in here," said Jad, and he began prowling around the room. He searched under the work table and behind the tool chest and between all the bulky workshop machines. Finally, he marched up to Roz and said, "I order you to show me where my sister is hiding." The robot pointed to the closet. Jad smiled and mischievously tiptoed over. Then he flung open the door and screamed, "Found you!" "No fair," Jaya whined. "Roz showed you where I was hiding." The girl scowled at the robot. "That wasn't very nice, Roz, but if you can make it up to me by playing hide and seek, that would be great. Count to 100 and then try to find my brother and me, okay?" There was a brief pause. Then the robot said, "Okay." Jaya and Jad squealed with delight and scampered out the door as Roz started counting. The robot's sensitive ears listened carefully to the children outside. She heard quick footsteps crunching across the driveway. She heard a giggle and the sounds of tree branches shaking. She heard a grunt and the sounds of hay bales being shoved aside. When the robot finished counting, it took her exactly 5 seconds to find Jaya up in a tree. It took her another 8 seconds to find Jad in the hayloft. "Wow, Roz is really good at seeking," said Jad as he picked up hay from his hair. Jaya snorted. "Yeah, well, let's just see how good she is at hiding." Roz was even better at hiding. When the children counted, the robot silently slipped away, and an hour later, they still haven't found her. And an hour later, they still hadn't found her. The siblings stood in the driveway, defeated. "We give up, Roz," shouted Jad. "You win," shouted Jaya. The junk pile beside the barn started moving, and Roz appeared. The robot had been sitting there all along, perfectly camouflaged among the scrap metal in the old farm machines. "The next time we play, you have to let one of us win," said Jaya to Roz. And the next time they played, Roz did. The robot enjoyed having the children around. They brought a little lightness into her world, and she hoped to bring a little lightness into theirs. Life must have been dark since their mother passed away. However, Roz had another reason for wanting the children around. She needed them. Her only chance of ever returning home was if Jaya and Jad could find it in their hearts to help her escape. But this was a delicate situation. If Roz tried too hard, the children might say something to their father. If she didn't try hard enough, she might be stuck on that farm forever. All right, my friends, and that is the end of chapter 15. The next chapter that I'll be reading in the next video is called The Robot's Dream. And in the next video, I will be reading chapters 16 through 20, so stay tuned for when I post that. I'm super excited to get into these chapters, and I really hope you're enjoying the book so far. If you are interested in commenting below about any of the questions or comments that I asked or said during this video, please feel free to comment below. I'm going to leave you with one more question. If you have a prediction that you would like to make in the comment section below, about how Roz is going to decide to escape, go ahead and do that. Make sure that you are using evidence from what we have already read in the text. So make sure that you're using words like for example, or like it said in chapter 5. Okay, so making predictions based on what has already happened in the book or the text that we're reading is definitely what is expected of a third grader. And now you guys are going into fourth grade, so it is definitely even more important that we're making predictions based on evidence from our text. So again, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to comment below if you would like to, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, guys.